Hello. Hey, everyone. We'll be starting up here in a couple minutes, waiting for a few more people to join. But I'm super excited to be here. I'm in Santa Barbara, if you can't tell. So we're going to be tasting our 15 and our 14 Brut Cuvée. The 15 was just released, so that's why we are popping the cork on that. Celebrating a little bit today. In fact, we have extremely nice weather down here in Santa Barbara. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to get to see you guys. Well, unfortunately not see you, but hear from you and taste some bubbles. Hey, Greg. Hey, Christy. So glad you guys could join us. I'm really excited about kind of the end of the video. I'm going to do a little surprise, a sneak peek of what we will be releasing later this year. And I brought some bottles as a show and tell to kind of show you the process of sparkling wine. Hey, Maggie. Jim, awesome. So glad you could join us. Yeah, sparkling is fun to drink and it's fun to talk about, especially for me. So this is a neat opportunity for all of us to share a glass. And if you have any questions at all throughout this, like please don't hesitate to ask me today, or even if it's later, that's a-okay. We're busy in the winery right now, and it's just nice to take a break and sit down and open some bubbles. So this is our second happy hour. Trey did one 2 weeks ago, and we will have another one in 2 weeks. It will be on the Sanford and Benedict Vineyard, and I hear that there's a special guest that might be joining Trey. So that's really exciting. All right, let's kick it off. My name is Laura Roach. I'm the Associate Winemaker here at Sanford Winery. I started in 2012, believe it or not, as enologist. I like to say that I went to Sanford University, which is not true, and I don't think that you should reiterate that to anyone else. It's inside secret. I went to UC Davis. I studied viticulture and enology, and I focused on that because my grandmother actually connected some dots for me in my interests, which are wine. I didn't realize it, but my interest in chemistry and math, baking, and the French culture — I took 5 years of French in middle school and high school — really led me to winemaking. And in 2008, I actually worked my first harvest for a domestic sparkling house, Schramsberg Vineyards. And that's what really ignited my passion for sparkling wine. And from there, I got my degree. I took a few more years to work harvest. And then I wanted to put my feet down and, really get them wet and work for a small producer making estate Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and sparkling. So I found Sanford, and it was like this light bulb went off. It was my mecca, and it's true what they say. Work is just so much better when you're working with great people, and I'm so honored to be working with amazing people day in and day out. And a lot has to do with our company culture, and for the Gelatos who own Sanford Winery and have invested so much into the land, but their passion is just driven straight through. So I was head over heels when I started working at Sanford. We did not have a sparkling wine program, so this eager UC Davis kid came in and wanted to take on a project, and I presented sparkling wine, and it was extremely well received by our team. and fortunately by the Terlatos. So I started a sparkling wine program in 2013 with the entire team of Sanford, and we produced a Brut Cuvée. So in celebration of that, let's talk about this Brut Cuvée. So Brut Cuvée is a direct translation from two French words meaning dry blend. So it is a blend and it is dry. But it is a blend of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, the two of the three most important important varieties, in both Champagne and also in Burgundy. And those two varieties really impart beautiful characteristics to a sparkling wine. For us, we found that Pinot Noir is it is the fruit and it is the texture. We like that in a little bit higher percentage than the Chardonnay. And then the Chardonnay that's blended in is really the backbone and the zest in a blend. So the blend varies year to year. So from 13, 14, and 15, the percent of Pinot has changed. For the 15, if you at home are tasting our sparklings with us, the 2015 is 70% Pinot and 30% Chardonnay. This sparkling went into bottle about 32 months ago. It was just disgorged. I apologize. It was disgorged a year ago, but it was in bottle for 32 months, which is what we've found to be the perfect harmony and has really livened the texture. So I'm going to take a sip of the wine, and if you guys would like to cheers. So sparkling wines, I really, I don't like to swirl the glass as I would with a still wine. The carbonation in the wine will come out a little bit faster. And also temperature. If you prefer your sparklings to be a little bit less of an attack on the tongue, serving them at a slightly warmer temperature will help with this. So the 15 for me is extremely well chiseled and it's taut. It is so beautiful and it screams spring. I think that it is an amazing pairing with something like a Comté Gougère, which I hear our chef has just posted online a great recipe pairing with our 15 Brut Cuvée. But in addition to this, there's a plethora of foods that you can pair with it because it's got this racy acidity that just races through. I find I really like triple cream brie. A whole spread of cheeses will pair nicely with this. Ooh, or salty foods such as potato chips. Are there any other pairings out there? Yeah. So I chose a white wine glass to taste the sparklings in because that's what I enjoy tasting sparklings out of. Traditionally, there are flutes that you can taste out of or tulip glasses, which are really nice and show off the sparkling extremely well. But for me, in this tasting experience, I want broader aromas to come out of the glass. And so having a little bit wider of a base on the glass allows me to do this. And I invite you to, if you have a couple glasses at home, maybe pour the sparkling in two different types of glasses. And while we're here, feel free to let me know what you find to be more appealing on the nose, or maybe it's just the aesthetics of having it. If it's just a celebratory experience, go for it. Have those flutes. So what I've found working at Sanford Winery, what really kind of hones it in, there's three key aspects for making a traditional method sparkling that just bring it all together to making it a successful and extremely beautiful wine. First is the varieties, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but it's also the vineyard location. So our location is within the Rita Hills, and we are on the southern corridor. So Rita Hills, if you haven't come out to visit us before, is within San Ynez Valley and within the greater region of Santa Barbara County. So it's a very cool climate appellation. We are within about 10 miles of the Pacific Ocean, and it opens out unimpeded. We have a east to west running valley, so the marine influence is extremely strong on our end of it. And because of that, we have really cold nights and warm days. But our daytime highs are buffered by the temperature, and that allows us to only have 70 degrees for about 3 to 4 hours, and then the temperatures drop. So it gets down to about 30, 40 degrees at night, and that cold nighttime temperature is what allows us to retain the acidity in the fruit. And the slow ripening period allows us to gain a finesse and balance in the fruit, and it ripens the fruit just to the right amount of sugar and keeping it nice and concentrated. And so for sparkling, we're looking for it just at that right touch. We pick a little bit earlier, so we're looking at finding a wine once it's completed at about 11.5% alcohol, because then we'll re-ferment afterwards. Sorry, one sec. I jumped ahead on the notes a little bit. So if you guys are tasting the 14 Brut Cuvée, I thought I'd pour that side by side to taste how it is in comparison and to give you guys a little insight on it. So I've read, and I've kind of found this as well, that if you pour the sparkling at an angle, you'll retain more of that carbonation in the glass.
We also had some food pairings suggested.
Oh, wonderful. Let's hear them.
So we have popcorn.
Yes. Was that my mom?
I'm not sure. Duck fat fries.
Duck fat fries.
And oysters.
Yes, absolutely. I think the duck fat fries would pair really well with the 14 Brut Cuvée. It has a little bit more toasty character. So both of these sparklings spent about the same amount of time in bottle entourage, which means the aging on the lees. And the 14 is just had a little bit longer cork time, since that was released about a year prior to the 15. And so it's just got a little bit more complexity to it. I think that it's really come into its own. So, fun fact, when you open up a bottle of sparkling, you have to be very careful, because inside this bottle, it's under about 5 times the amount of pressure as we're feeling out here in the atmosphere. So 5 times the amount of pressure inside the bottle then forces the cork, or wants to force the cork out at an extremely fast rate. And if that's in your face, that's going to hurt. And don't want that to happen. So we need to keep our hands over top of the cork when we're taking off the cage. And what's interesting is that the cork comes out at 14 miles per hour as it shoots out of the bottle. And instantaneously, as soon as you do that, the carbonation wants to come out. And if it's served at a warmer temperature, more will come out at a faster rate. So if you have it down chilled, you'll retain the bubbles a little bit longer. A neat little trick in the fridge too. Keeping it in the fridge will keep it chilled, keep the bubbles in the bottle longer. We like to just stick the cork on top just to keep it in for a little bit longer. Yeah, so let's taste the 14 next to it. So this has less Pinot Noir and more Chardonnay. For me, I find that the Chardonnay adds this like sea spray quality to the sparkling, which is absolutely gorgeous. It gives it an amazing, almost caramel quality as it ages. And what's neat about tasting our 2 sparklings, they're 100% estate, as are all of our wines. Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and the sparklings. They I've lost my train of thought. I knew that was going to happen. I was going somewhere with that. Dang it. Sorry about that. Were there any questions that I might have?
There's some winemaking questions pertaining to how we riddle the wine and if everything is riddled by hand.
Yeah. So I'm going to take one step backwards just to kind of explain what I'm talking about when I say traditional method sparkling. So all of our sparklings are estate, and they're grown from our vineyards, and they are made in the traditional champagne way, which means that the carbonation started in the bottle. And so the fermentation happens in the bottle, and then they age on tirage, which is the term that we use for aging on the lees. And then once it comes to riddling and disgorging, we actually use gyro pallets. So they're automated machines that move the bottle from the side to the point. So this actually gives me a great opportunity to show you. So this is our 16 Brut Rosé. I don't know if you can see, but at the base of the bottle is the spent lees, so the spent yeast. So that's the lees that collects at the bottom of the bottle after fermentation. So we move that yeast from the side to the point of the bottle, and that is called the riddling. Traditionally, it's done by hand, which is very labor intensive, and that's part of why not so many people make sparkling wine. Is it's dangerous and it's very labor intensive. But the process of riddling will bring the yeast from the side of the bottle down to the very tip, which is pretty cool. And now I have two heads. That's really cool. And then it's disgorged in a really cold solution of an ice bath, and then the crown cap is removed and corked. We do not do this by hand. I found that there's more chance of variability when you're doing things by hand like this, and so we can just eliminate one more chance of human error, and also safety as well. So yeah.
And then we have a couple of people drinking the 2013 Brut Cuvée. So if you could talk to the difference in the blends.
For sure.
For the 2013.
Yeah. So in 13, we only produced one sparkling, and that was it. So the 13 aged for 2.5 years, so a similar time frame as these. The percent of the Pinot Noir was 70%. Oh, I'm sorry, 80%. So it actually had the highest amount of Pinot Noir. So what I believe you will find is that there's a little bit more structure to that sparkling. So in tasting it, it tastes great on its own, but it also will pair with something a little bit more stronger in the food. Fried, anything fried is amazing with sparkling wine because of that fat acid on the tongue. And so I would think, fried chicken with that. But yeah, stylistically, we're always trying to make the best sparkling wines that are expressive of their vineyards. So all three of those sparklings, the 13, 14, and 15 Brut Cuvée, are blends from one Chardonnay block at La Rinconada. And that's a Dijon clone up in the back of the property. If you were out at the tasting room, it's a block that's behind our winery. Really beautiful Chardonnay and really fun to work with for sparkling. So we do a lot of fun, fermentations with that, but for the sparkling, that one's pretty unique. And then we're blending that with two other Pinot Noirs, one from La Rinconada. Actually, as you drive into the property, it's the first block on the right. That is one of our favorites. It's Clone 23, which is actually a champagne clone. Really big berries, and that's what we're looking for when we're selecting which blocks we want to work with for this this wine. It's the bigger the berry, a little bit less of that skin contact, and so less tannins that we're extracting from the skins, and just getting this really beautiful fruit. So in addition to that, there's one block from Sanford and Benedict, which is a Dijon clone that we blend. So 3 different clones that we pick separately. They're the first ones to be picked. So with sparkling, we're picking in July, as early as July, but typically in August. So the 13, 14, and 15 were all drought years for us. And it was kind of a record that I'd had at Sanford. It was almost every harvest up until the most recent ones were all drought years. And so what normal was, I didn't understand, because my normal was just drought in the San Rita Hills. So we did have a little bit more of a tough time, because the window of picking sparkling is really important. So we're fermenting that first fermentation to only about 11.5% alcohol, and then the secondary fermentation, which we'll carry out in the bottle, will gain an extra 1%. So since I've kind of touched on all aspects of traditional method sparkling, I'd love to lay it out simply for you. I think of it as the 6 stages of sparkling. Because it undergoes multiple fermentations, it's a little bit confusing, but if there's one thing that you can take away from this tasting, is that you have a better appreciation for the labor of love that goes into all of these bubbles. So without further ado, I'll talk you through it. So with sparkling wine, you need to plan. You have to plan for the future, selecting which blocks, and picking at the right time. And that goes all into the first fermentation. So that's the first stage, is fermentation, which is very similar to a still wine. You can select whether you go into a stainless steel tank, or you can go into barrels. And we like the blend of the both. We get a little bit more aromatics and different ones. And then the next step is making that cuvee, that blend. So we're selecting this barrel and that barrel and tasting them. It's always rigorous tasting, and it's actually the most difficult thing because of the really high acid in the wines. So we talk in grams per liter of titratable acidity, which may mean nothing to you, but let's just say it's like battery acid. Not really, but really, really tart. So tasting through that and seeing where that wine might go, we develop the best cuvee that we can, as I hope we have done for the 13, 14, and 15. The next step is the tirage. So tirage is a fancy term for the second fermentation. So at this stage, while the sparkling is under crown cap, it undergoes its first bottling. And this is called the tirage bottling. That's when the base wines, the cuvee, is blended with an additional sugar and yeast and nutrients, and it's blended together and put into the bottle. Each of those bottles then undergoes its own fermentation. So right after it's bottled, it's quite hazy and all of the yeast is in suspension. After 30 days, the yeast then consumes all the sugar, converts it to the lovely byproducts of a little bit more alcohol and some carbonation, those beautiful bubbles. And then after 30 days, we have this nice sediment of spent lees, or spent yeast, which is the lees. So the tirage time frame can really go from as minimum as probably 1.5 years to as maximum as long as you want. What you're gaining is an exorbitant amount of texture and flavors. The yeast are they're slowly autolysing and dying off and breaking down, which adds manoproteins to the wine, which is a very fancy term for delicious texture. And then also you're getting a little bit more of this caramelization. I think of it, if anybody's into brewing, it's like malting malt It goes through its different stages where it's a little bit more soft and subtle, and I'm forgetting my terms, so I apologize, Charlie Bamforth, my brewing teacher. But more vanilla to start, and then it goes on to get a little more toasty, and to somewhere in between, it's like hazelnut and intense toast. So the aging is the most crucial stage to sparkling, and it's all into that crown cap. And then when it comes time to release all of the yeast, we have to go through the riddling. So the bottle will be turned from its side to on point. And this happens over in a cage. In a riddling cage, it can happen about 9 days. By hand, it takes 30 days. So you really kind of hone that down. And then freeze the neck of the neck of the crown cap. Freeze that, turns into a nice, beautiful icicle, which pops out with all of the pressure inside of it. We quickly top it back up with a little bit more wine. And that final stage is a dosage, which, as my best friend who's not in the wine industry told me, is dosage. So I was like, oh, you're right. I was just saying dosage, very, very French. But yes, so it's a final dosage, which is a sugar wine mixture. All of our sparklings, we taste very cautiously and decide just the right amount of dosage that we want to add. If you are tasting the 13 Brut Cuvée, that actually has one of the lower amounts. I think we did 4 grams per liter. So we talk in residual sugar, grams per liter. So that's kind of on the lower end. The term brut is a wide range of dryness, but it can be from bone dry to 0, bone dry, which is 0, and then up to 12 grams per liter. So a really wide range. It's a term that we've adopted from France. There are no restrictions in the U.S. for the terminology, so we put them on ourselves.
So we had a quick question back to the pre-selected, or the blocks that you use. Are they pre-selected prior to just?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's lots of planning. Sorry, I feel like I'm a little parched. 1 second. Yeah. So with sparkling wine, we really have to plan ahead in our picking decision, because the fruit will accumulate sugar as it's ripening on the vine, and we need to pick it so that the alcohol at the end of the first fermentation, when it's still in barrel, only gets to about 11.5% alcohol. Any higher than that, and we're going to have a really difficult time re-fermenting it in bottle, and we don't want that. So we have to be cautious on that, and also anything that we're adding to it. It's a product that we really add nothing to other than yeast.
And then there was another question about pressing. Is pressing for sparkling different than pressing for like a regular Pinot?
Yeah, that's a super great question. The pressing for sparkling wine is relatively similar to, bubbles. Hazard of the job. It's very similar to Chardonnay pressing or really most white wines. It's similar in that it goes into a bladder press and it's just delicately pressed, but it's the most delicate of all the pressings, because we don't want to pick up anything off from the skins. And when I say off, it's like the color. We really don't want to impart too much color, impart too much tannin, but just keep it nice and elegant, but really get that creme de la creme juice, which is inside the berry. And it's a fun thing to note that Pinot Noir, which is one of our prized grapes for sparkling, when you press it, it does not take on any of the color of the skins, because we're picking it early enough so that we get a nice clear juice.
And then can you speak to this, the current vintage? how it's looking. People are just
Oh
curious.
yeah, totally. The 15 Brut Cuvée.
No. Our most recent.
Oh yeah. 2019.
Yes.
Oh, I have to give away all of our secrets.
Yeah.
Okay. So Trey and I, I haven't even mentioned Trey yet. So Trey Fletcher is our senior winemaker, and he is such a joy to work with. We have been working hard in developing our blends for the Rita Hills, the Chardonnay, and the Pinot Noir, which go into bottle first. And we have a lot of amazing blocks to be working with from our two vineyards. So the wines are looking just gorgeous. I think that what that means for me, is as we're tasting really young wines and thinking about where they're going to be, there is extreme concentration. There's uniqueness to each of the blocks. We have some which are just like, for me, intense blueberry or blackberry. And then we have others which have just a little bit more savory qualities to it. I find that our Sanford and Benedict wines always do. And just really excited to eventually share those with you. It's a culmination of Trey Fletcher's background and myself, our amazing team, and our vineyard manager, Eric Malaya, and the Gelatos too. And, there's so much respect for the place, which before I say goodbye, I just wanted to mention that Michael Benedict, the founder of Sanford and Benedict, is a huge mentor for myself and for our whole team. And so we're really excited to have him on our next live tasting with Trey, tasting the Sanford and Benedict wines. So that'll be extremely awesome. And if you guys didn't get a chance to have our sparklings at home with you, please jump online, place your orders. We have a $5 flat rate shipping right now that's good until the end of the month. If you live locally in the Santa Barbara area, Hope Riley, our tasting room manager, is heading up deliveries, and she can do it day of if early on that you place your order. But her email is simply hope, HOPE, at sanfordwinery.com. And I did give you a sneak peek of our next release, which is the 16 Rosé. So 100% Pinot Noir, beautiful rosé. Super stoked on this one. It will be released to our Sparkling Club in the fall. And if you're interested in that, please reach out to Donna Seaman, our wine club manager. She would love to assist you with that. We release 3 to 4 different sparklings to our club in the fall each year. And we hope you enjoy them. Thank you guys so much for joining. Stay safe, stay healthy.